Hey everybody, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I'm going to sit down with super wine geek Michael Juergens. Welcome to the show.
What's up, man?
That's a first for me, having a wine geek on the show. Yeah, I'm sober on this episode. We're not drunk. I think it's really cool.
As far as you know.
As far as maybe you had a couple glasses. All right, that's okay. I mean, before we even get started, I want to know what made you get inspired to start a wine industry in Bhutan, of all places.
I randomly I was running marathons in weird spots, and I randomly went to run a marathon in Bhutan. And when I was there, I'd been to all the major global wine regions, and it just looked and felt like a wine region. Everything I ate was amazing. All the fruit was amazing. And I just assumed there was wine. So I kept asking everybody, where's the wineries? I want to visit them. And they were like, we don't have any. And I'm like, well, you guys need to solve for this right now and get it done. And so
you kind of figured this could be a good location to start harvesting wine, but you weren't 100% sure until you kind of dug into it. But this is in the Himalayas, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking into the Himalayas at one point. There's a pretty big industry of like local townspeople who are like always creating crafts. Like there's Himalayan sea salt. There's a lot of other kind of crafts that they create that they export to try to make ends meet back home, right? So do you think that this is kind of part of why you wanted to do that, was try to get the people involved to help?
No, not at all, actually. I am all about let's find ways to make the world's best wine.
Okay.
And so when I was there, all the fruits and vegetables they ate were some of the best I've had in my life. And in our Western minds, we think Himalayas, we think glaciers and Everest and Yetis and stuff.
Right.
But the reality of it is, a lot of it is this very fertile, very untouched environment. I mean, Bhutan's the only carbon negative country in the world, and they grow some of the best crops in the world there already in weird verticals.
How are they? What makes them carbon negative for people that might not know?
Well, they have pretty strict rules about bringing things like cars into the country. Like if you want to bring a car into the country, you can bring a car in, but it has to be a new car, can't be used, and it's 100% tariff. And so that sort of reduces pollution levels. They do this thing called gross national happiness, where they measure that instead of GDP. Okay. And there's 4 pillars of gross national happiness. And whenever they're going to do a project, they sort of compare it back against those 4 pillars to see if it makes sense.
Okay.
One of the 4 pillars is environmental sustainability. Okay. And they actually wrote it into the Constitution that they can't have more than less than 65% of the country be forest lands.
Wow.
So they're keeping up the trees. They're managing what pollutants come into it. When they do economic things, they measure it based on, is it going to up the environment or not?
Imagine if we did that, in other parts of the world.
I could think of, if we did it in China and India, probably the ozone would be a lot better than it is today.
Yeah, the rainforest could definitely use
the rainforest. That's a perfect example.
And we're knocking trees down everywhere. So, like, you basically chose Bhutan to potentially be like Napa Valley, I guess. So, what caused you to choose it? What are your plans for doing this? And what does this mean for Bhutan? I mean, this might help put it on the map in some other ways. Is it going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, so I think I'll tackle that one first. I think they believe it's going to be a great thing for them, because right now, talking about the stuff that gets exported, a lot of it is agricultural, and it's low value stuff. Mm-hmm. So you buy a $2 thing of cardamom at Whole Foods that came from Bhutan, but it doesn't say Bhutan, and it's cheap, right, or whatever. But a bottle of wine and the current Himalayan wine, they make wine in the Himalayas now on the China side, and that wine is really highly priced. It's the lowest one is maybe $300, and the highest one is maybe $1,200 a bottle.
Holy moly!
So now, rather than exporting $2 worth of cardamom, I can export a $150 bottle of Bhutanese Cabernet that's branded Bhutan. People see it, they enjoy it. It creates more opportunities for the people in the country. A lot of the people are farmers today. Maybe eventually they'll start farming grapes, and it'll give them higher value crops to sell. The kids get more interested in it than rice. That's for damn sure. So a lot of benefits to the country. Why I picked it, I didn't pick it actually.
You said you ran a marathon in a couple different places. You ran a marathon in Bhutan, and I guess something happened.
Yeah, so I just felt very strongly that this could be one of the next great wine regions in the world. So I was pushing. I had the opportunity to meet with some of the government officials, and I was pushing. I'm like, you guys should really think about doing this. And I wrote a white paper for them and said, this is why I think it. I wrote a business plan for them that said, this is how you do it. I was just saying, you guys ought to do this.
What
It's
about the global wine industry? I mean, I'm assuming that somebody would have known this at one point in the past couple thousand years.
well, and
How
I think
it sounds like you've discovered something that the rest of the world hasn't, or
well, I
what's going
mean,
on here?
they so the global wine regions are very worried about climate change. So like Champagne is buying land in England because it's getting too warm to make champagne in Champagne, and Bordeaux is letting there be new grapes included in the mix because it's getting too hot for the grapes they have now.
Okay,
Um, Through that, the Himalayas, because it's kind of untouched and
right.
it's clean water and
Yep, lots
you
of good things.
lots of different elevations, so you can play with temperature pretty easily. And so people have been doing it, like I said, on the China side with
Okay,
some great success. I think Bhutan is just maybe not the right person didn't go there. Maybe it's hard to get
huh?
to. There's
There's
barriers.
there's definitely some barriers to entry that you think you can get around.
Yeah, so
Um,
we did get around them. I mean, the country eventually decided they wanted to do it, and they said,
okay.
"Hey, will you do it?" And I was like, "Are you going to give me an entire country to build a wine industry from scratch?" Hell yeah, I'm all in on that. I never anticipated that they would appoint me, the wine
That's
czar.
crazy, right? I'm assuming you started small, like you just tried to grow a vineyard in a select area first to see how it went, or have you gotten that far yet?
Oh, no. So we've been at this now for about 7.5 years. So we're
Okay.
pretty deeply into it. So
Oh, okay.
there's so much variety in the climates and the altitudes there that we began by planting 6 different vineyards.
Okay. To
Um,
try
it,
different. Okay, I got it. To see the differences, and what did that really work out in a way that you
yeah,
expected?
we learned a ton, and then from that we are now up to 10 vineyards with 200 acres of
Holy
vineyard.
wow!
And we're about to pull the trigger on another 100 acres here pretty soon.
Whoa,
Um,
massive.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the goal is to build a wine industry, right? So you got to start having thousands of acres to be.
Has anybody tried to encroach on your, your success or
No, not
your
yet. I think I'm guessing that there's people sitting and watching and seeing
with
it more
with
successful.
big pockets, I'm assuming too. I mean, and then you're trying to make wine fun and interesting by doing this also, because it's just so, like you said, Champagne, Bordeaux, we know all the names. It just goes back, thousands of years. Everybody knows, the staple wine industries. But at the same time, I'm sure you want to avoid wine douchery, as it's called. How are you going to be doing this?
Well, so I do think that there is a lot of mystique around just Bhutan in general, right? It's this magic
It
Shangri-La in
is.
the Himalayas. So we've got some sort of brand cachet already. And then the idea of building a wine industry where no grapes existed. I think the last time this happened was New Zealand in the 1800s, because pretty much everywhere else has been growing grapes for thousands of years. They just never got to this little pocket in the Himalayas.
Yeah,
So
Himalayas is known for sea salt. That's just plain and simple. Pink Himalayan sea salt. That's what everybody knows.
yep, as from a product perspective, I think that's probably true. And so to now, and people love it, right? People like search it
That's
out.
what everybody wants.
So we're starting, with a lot of brand cachet already, and it's up to me to figure out how to capture that in a bottle of wine in a way that is congruent. And then, I mean, I probably gave 50 interviews last year from people all around the world who were like very interested in this project because it's so unique and so cool. Um, so,
Maybe
you know,
a pink Himalayan wine.
yeah.
So now I'm assuming that the taste is going to be different, of course. Like I have drank a lot of wine in my life. I love Malbec is my favorite, but certain wines go with certain foods. They pair really well. So how do you see your wines, the different wines, interacting with not only the local cuisine and culture of Bhutan, but outside of Bhutan? How do you see it interacting? Is there going to be a difference? Are you going to maybe figure out a way to do it that way so that people
Yeah,
get
so I
away?
think there's two philosophies I think in the wine space. So one is you make a recipe wine, or the other is you make a location wine, a terroir wine. And the difference would be like McDonald's is replicating Big Macs everywhere versus your local hamburger joint is trying to do something special locally, right?
Right, right, right.
So, and then when you look around the wine world, you see this. I think as I've gone through the path of studying to earn my master wine certification, you do a lot of blind tasting. And if it's a location driven wine, 9 times out of 10, I can tell you where it's from and what it is based on the taste, the flavors, the aromas, the structure. This is South African. This is French. This is New Zealand. And so,
Are you close to what they call a sommelier? Is that what?
well, I am also a sommelier. Yeah, but
Very cool. So okay, nice. So you definitely know your stuff.
yeah.
So,
I've been.
like you're not just some guy who found a place in Bhutan and decided to do this. You have the cred, you have the experience.
Oh yeah, I've written like 8 books about wine. Like I know what I'm talking about as it relates to wine. So anyway, back to your question. I do not want to make a Big Mac wine. I want to make a location wine and figure out what expression of wine is created in Bhutan. We don't know yet, right? Because we haven't made our first wine yet.
Okay. The
But
10 vineyards you haven't made the wine yet.
well, it takes about 5 years for a vineyard to come online.
Sheesh.
And there was a pandemic going on that kind of slowed us down a
Ay,
little
ay,
bit.
ay.
But we did make an experimental one barrel of wine last year. But we'll do our first commercial harvest this summer.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
How did the barrel come out?
so far, so good. It looks really nice. But what we did was we only had a few grapes from different vineyards, so we just threw everything together
I see.
with the idea of making the first barrel of wine ever, and it would be more of a commemorative piece.
Yeah, but also to see the result in general, just to see how it comes out.
Exactly.
That's
And
cool.
so based on that, this summer we're going to get really focused on trying to make individual types of wine. And
So you mentioned the commercial one this year. When's that going to come out? What's your expectation for that? What are the plans for this commercial harvest?
so we'll pick, we'll start picking probably in July, pick through September. Then we'll make the wine. The whites, typically you're going to want them to sit down to age for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then the reds, you're probably going to want to age between 10 to 18 months.
Okay. So we're
And
thinking
that's
a
going to be done
year,
on,
a year and a half, roughly. We have to, so 2025, end of 2025 for the whites and beginning of 2026 for the reds.
yeah, maybe summer of 2025 for the whites, or maybe even slightly earlier, and sort of towards the end of 2025 for the reds. The reds
Okay.
you kind of taste as they're aging in barrel and
Okay.
see how they evolve.
Okay. So you can yeah. So you can still try it. And,
Yeah.
and there have been like major developments occurring in the wine industry. Even me, who's not a sommelier, someone who's not a huge wine aficionado, I've noticed in the news here and there, I've noticed wine stuff. So are there new challenges that are being posed to wineries? If so, what are they?
I mean, I think as we globalize, that creates both opportunities and challenges. As you look at things like, NFTs and
Oh yeah.
Web 3.0 technologies applied to the space, for me, I am less concerned about those challenges. I'm more concerned about the fact that I have a snow leopard prowling around one of my vineyards who might eat
Jeez.
my employees. Like Bordeaux doesn't have those challenges. Bhutan has some of the most dangerous wasps in the world, and these wasps are the only wasps that are strong enough to bite through the skin of a wine grape. So nobody else has a wasp challenge. Their wasps are too
Oh my
weak to
God.
bite through.
You
So
picked a great place to do this.
yeah, so those are the kind of things that I'm worried about, more so than some of the challenges that the industry faces globally.
And you mentioned carbon negatives. There must be some sustainability practices that you're implementing in your winemaking process. If so, what are they?
100%. We're still kind of working that through. So, for example, the wasp thing. One of the things that we're studying now is, are there plants that we can grow down the middle of the rows that the smell pushes the wasps away?
I like that.
And so we're screwing around with some hot peppers right now,
Oh, nice.
and some other things. And so when you start building these beneficial ecosystems, it's there's some science, but there's also some trial and error. And so
So you're basically learning everything as you go along, and then if someone decided to come in, they'd be taking all the information you learn and doing it. So you gotta really hold that information close to your chest. This is fascinating. I hope people really enjoyed this. Where can they find out more about what you're doing and how to get involved?
So they could go to bhutanwine.com. That's our website. A lot of information there. Obviously, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bhutan Wine. And then if you want to find out more about me, you can hit me up at drinkingandknowingthings.com, which is a link to all my wine stuff, all my books and my newsletters and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Thanks, Michael. And guys, check out bhutanwine.com. I'm excited to try some wine in a year or so. I'm looking forward to it. We'll have to hit you up for that. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.